welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal. I am your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present, mostly large sharks. We're going to get started over at Miami, and the date is May 10th of 2010. Brian Storch, he is from Michigan, where I am from, and he went down and he was doing a charter fishing. So he's out doing some charter fishing, and his girlfriend is with him, and they're with this Mark the Shark is the name of the captain that they're with, and girlfriend catches a shark, an 8-foot sandbar, and they get the shark up on the boat. And there's I'm going to link a photo of this, a story that has a photo of the shark. It's 8 feet long. It's a sandbar shark. Girlfriend catches it. They get it up on board, and now Brian, he wants to take a photo, a selfie, I guess, with it, and have Mark the Shark take the photo of him. And when he goes up there to get the photo, the shark turns and bites him in the arm. He has to get stitches. He received quite a few stitches, but not a major injury, but just a crazy shark bite. That's not an attack. That's a fishing injury, even though you're doing something stupid like that. I consider it stupid unless that shark is dead, and even then I have some stories of sharks that are supposedly dead that maybe by kind of a nervous system reaction close their mouths on some people, but I wouldn't be getting next to any live shark to take a photo. Maybe a nurse shark, and that's about it. A little baby nurse shark, about that long. So that's our story of Brian Storch on non-attack fishing incident. Okay, now we're going to head over to Seldon Bay, and that is in South Africa. The date, November 27th of 2003. Seldon G, he is 21 years old, and he is out doing some spearfishing. He's with 2 friends, and they go out on a charter boat, and the 2 friends are in scuba gear, and they're diving the reef. Well, Seldon, he's actually a 21-year-old dive instructor. He's employed as a dive instructor. He is doing free diving, and he's spearfishing. And the charter boat said that he was over 300 yards further out from the reef. It's in the morning. So he's out away from the reef doing some spearfishing, and he does not return. They notify authorities. A search is launched. They end up finding a part of his wetsuit, a little piece of his wetsuit, and his left hand, and that's all they ever recover from him. They never recovered a single thing other than that I know of. So, they said that when they were doing the search, they saw a 14-foot tiger shark that was just a huge shark. And a couple weird things that were in the GSAF report, of course. I believe Eric Ritter was the investigator. I don't know if he writes the reports, but he was the investigator on it. But whoever wrote the report decided to throw in there where it says species. Instead of just telling you the 14-foot tiger shark in there, they tell you, well, he could have lost his breath. He could have blacked out because he was holding his breath. Divers will do that. And then the shark came along and found him. Doesn't make sense to me, but what doesn't make more sense is saying that this shark, the 14-foot tiger shark, was so big the spotter plane was able to notice it. I mean, aren't they looking for a 6-foot person, 5-6-foot person? I hope they can see a 14-foot tiger shark in probably what is pretty clear and pretty shallow water by that reef. Even so, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But to throw in there that it, could have held his breath, and well. It's like, they don't want to bother people. This is the GSAF stance on all these divers that disappear. They're never bothered until they pass out, until they have an emergency, and all of a sudden here comes the sharks. So sharks are only there under emergency for them. Doesn't make sense. Excuse it away all you want, GSAF. I'm putting it down as an attack and a predation. I would say that it's probably a tiger shark, so that's probably the best bet. That 14-footer, maybe. That's a possibility, being in the area and being that size. But there's no way to tell. So without them finding, any body and any teeth marks, any fragments of teeth, there's no way to tell what size or what shark. So we'll leave this one as unknown. Attack, attempt to predate. Okay, now we're going to head to Jiroa Headland, and that is in New South Wales, Australia. The date is April 15th of 1968. Rodney Castle, he is out doing some free diving spearfishing, holding his breath, doing the spearfishing, and he's with a couple of partners, but he is quite a ways away from them, and the water is very milky. There's very low visibility, and he says that he spotted, he was down there and he found a crayfish hole. So he left his spear gun down there on the ground, on the seafloor, to mark the spot, and he went up to take a breath. He goes up and he takes his breath, and he's on his way back down to the hole that he had marked, and he spotted a 6-foot bronze whaler shark. And the shark started coming at him, and he says that he was able to take and just push its head away. He pushed it away the first time the shark came at him. Now the shark turns and comes at him again. He went to push him away this time with the left hand, must have came from a different direction, or he was spun a different way, but he had to push away from his left hand. Well, his hand went in the mouth, and before he could get his hand out, one of his fingers got clamped down in the shark's mouth. He said the lip of the shark was around the rest of his fingers, so I'm thinking it's probably his pinky that it had. Now, he instinctively did not want to pull that hand out because he didn't want to lose his finger. He said he wrapped his arm around the shark and they went for a ride. The shark took and swam with Rodney. Now, he was 600 meters from the rocks, so you're talking almost about 700 yards from the rocks, in 30 feet deep water when he ended up running into this bronzy. And he's holding on to this shark. He probably can get his arms almost all the way around a 6-foot bronzy, I would think. And it took him for a nice ride, about 30 yards, where the shark suddenly opened its mouth, and he says it was going to take a better bite. Well, as soon as it opened its mouth, he took his finger out of its mouth, released the shark swam off, and he swam back, and he just ended up with a bite to his finger. Ends up keeping his finger. Very lucky. Another Rodney that's been attacked. It's got to be up there as far as the names that have been attacked. We had Rodney Fox, now Rodney Castle, Rodney Temple, Rodney Orr, and I'm probably forgetting Rodney here or there. So that's our story of Rodney Castle, an attack, not an attempt to predate, by a 6-foot bronze whaler. Okay, now we're going to head over to Cape York, and that is in Queensland, Australia, and the date is December 5th of 2011. Dave Fordson, he was out doing some spearfishing with his buddies. I believe they were in full scuba gear, and he did not return to the moored boat at 12:30. So just afternoon, 12:30, they were all supposed to meet up, it sounds like, and he did not show up. They notified authorities, and a search was launched. They did find some of his equipment that day, and then they found his body the next day. This one is strange. They say that this could either be he was injured by either alligator, crocodile, or a reef shark, they said. And I wouldn't think that a reef shark would. Now, this is the thing. I mean, if it's that, you can't tell between a crocodile and a shark. This body must have ended up like that body they come across in the beach at the beginning of Jaws of the girl that was chewed up out there. I mean, it must have been in terrible shape to not be able to determine what actually happened. So I had seen that the Queensland police, they weren't treating it as anything suspicious, as, you know, just an animal attack, but they're not sure whether it's a crocodile or a shark. And, you know, my bet would be a shark. It wouldn't be a reef shark. But I don't know what kind of you know, condition the bones and what kind of scratches are on the bones and what the body is. I can't even imagine what kind of shape that body could be in to not be able to tell. So if anybody has any idea how you'd be able to tell the difference, or how you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a shark and, other than the body is, you know, unidentifiable. It's been chewed up so much. Like I said, that body that they brought out in like a little, like a, what do you call that, a busboy dish tub where you carry it around there, something where it was chewed up like that. I mean, it's just crazy. So that's our story of Dave Fordson. I would say a shark attack, but I don't know, and I'm not going to put it in there. This one's going to go into our questionable files until I look into this one further, because I probably will look into it a little bit more. Everything I'm seeing most people trying to say that it's, you know, the croc, but you know, you have these shark experts. Some of them are trying to say that it's a shark, and I would, like I said, I would think it was too. So who knows? If anybody knows how you'd be able to tell, or how you wouldn't be able to tell, throw it in the comments. Okay, now we're going to finish out our unprovoked attacks over at Jimmy's Beach. That is in Port Stephens, and that is New South Wales, Australia. The date is March 16th of 2011. Lisa Mondy, she is out doing some wakeboarding. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and she has just gotten off her board, her wakeboard, and she's waiting for the boat to come and pick her up. The water's clear, perfectly clear water. It doesn't say the depth. and all of a sudden a shark comes up and grabs her by the face, grabs her face and pulls her down in the water by her face. Luckily, it releases her face and bites her upper left arm before it goes ahead and leaves her alone. So, a crazy one where, you're being dragged around by a boat. I'm wondering, how long that shark had or she had the shark's attention being dragged around there. And, the fact that she had just waiting on the boat, you would think that the boat's coming right back to get her. So that makes me think the shark was paying attention to her going around the water as she was moving. But to be bitten in the face like that and be taken in, lucky there was no shaking going on. That would be just treacherous. And then it released and bit her arm before it left. I would say that, definitely another one of those kind of like a surfboard, kayak, boat, territorial attack, and ended up biting her twice in the process. She did recover from the attack, but she did not recover full use of her left arm. She became a conservationist for the sharks. She went out and she worked to stop both nets and drum lines, the nets on the beaches, the drum lines to catch the sharks with after attacks. She also was on X Factor. I guess she's a singer, I would think. So she was on X Factor, but yeah, she ends up with this attack. I'm going to put in the description, I'm also going to put a link of, I believe it's a Facebook page I ran across that has an interview by Lisa after the attack talking about, what had happened. But man, that's another attack to the head. This time it did bite her a second time, but, this one I 100% think it's just like a surfboard, to where it was just going to take it out on whatever it was going to take it out on, and it ended up taking out on her instead of her board. They were probably separated as she fell off the board and they're going around to get her. So it didn't have the board to go ahead and bite her with, and then she ends up getting bit because she's what's left there. So I think the shark actually was paying attention to her as she was whipping around on the surface above it. So that's our story of Lisa Monday, an attack, not an attempt to predate. They say this is a 3 to 4 meter great white shark, so you're talking anywhere from about 11 feet to 14 foot great white shark that grabbed her by the face. Very lucky attack to be able to survive that. But again, we haven't had many fatalities with bites that start out to the head, so I'm kind of paying attention to that. That's our story, Lisa Monday. Okay, we're about to finish out our show with Why So Angry Shark. Before we do, I want to say both stores are still open. Probably the last week you'll be able to get things shipped there by Christmas. I know you should be able to get your stuff from my store over here at the website, sharkshappen.com, by Christmas, by the end of this week. Etsy, I'm not too sure of. It's going to be pushing it pretty close by the end of the week. So if you want stuff by Christmas, you want to order it in the next day or two to make sure that you get it if you're getting it from the Etsy store. At the Etsy store also, the promo code to save 10% is predate. So that's our story of that. I wanted to go over, I'm going to start going over some shark deterrents in the final clips of some of these shows. We're going to go over some of these. We're going to start out back in 1968, I believe it's 1968, when H. David Baldrige, the Navy, went ahead and told him that they wanted him to research these deterrents that they had out. At the time, there was a couple different deterrents that they had out there. One of them was a bag that, the swimmer would carry with them, or a soldier, in this case, a sailor, I should say. And they would have a bag on their hip or with them, and then if they ended up in the water and a shark ends up there, they take the bag out. And you take the bag and you fill it up with water, and then you climb inside of the bag, and then you blow up, you inflate the ring around the top of it, and that keeps it afloat and keeps it around you, and water's in there to keep it out. I remember seeing those back in the day, early 70s. You'd see some things on those where they're in there and they'd show them from underwater, and it just looks like a dark, shape that's under the water. I'm not too sure how effective that would be. Just because of the shark's curiosity. I mean, a tiger shark's going to bite things that are floating around at the top of the water, but I'm not sure that other sharks wouldn't do the same. So that one I want to look into and see exactly why they stopped using it. I thought it might be a good idea. They said, it removes your odors and your as long as it's up at the top of the water, it removes probably your electrical field because you're surrounded by like a rubber type bag, but I'm not sure. I'm going to look into that one. Today we're going to go over the the one that was being used at the time, all the sailors had them. They were these dye packs that they gave them. They were supposed to open up the dye pack, and it was supposed to keep the swimmer hidden from the sharks. It didn't work very well. There were some issues in it that I had seen before, even looking into this, that, you know, the dye it's not a lot of dye. First of all, you need a lot more of the dye to even hide yourself than you can carry with you. So it wasn't enough dye to hide the person. The dye eventually and pretty quickly drifted away from the person, so now you're outside of the dye anyway. But H. David Baldrige, he realized in his studies that sometimes the sharks came in, it's a black dye that has a copper acetate in it, and he says some of the sharks would come in and eat it. So the Navy went ahead and they admitted, yeah, that they're not effective, that it's basically for psychological help for their people, that they don't have to see the sharks in the water around them. So that appears what the Navy was doing at the time. Is I'm pretty sure they knew that this was totally ineffective, and they just thought it was better than nothing, just leaving the guy out there. At least he doesn't have to see the shark coming in at him. So that's probably why they stopped using that. Ineffective, and some of the sharks were eating it. Now, H. David Baldrige does talk about back in 75, I believe it is. 75 was when they stopped using the ink for the sharks, because he came out with his study that he was hired to do, and so not effective. So he said that there were people were talking of electronic, like they have now, shark bands, using an electric pulse to be able to throw off the shark sensory. They're little, it looks like those hair plugs, but the Ampullaria lorenzini, it throws that off, they're hoping, and it sends the sharks the other way. But back then, H. David Baldrige was saying that what might deter, let's say, a lemon shark, I think he used a lemon shark, might attract a tiger shark. So I never even thought about that what is the electric pulse going to do to different species? I mean, this guy probably can handle it the most, and it's the one that I don't think any electronic thing that's safe for humans and other animals is going to bother this thing. No way. And it comes in too fast. I mean, we go over some sharks that are lazy in their approach. Tiger shark, that shark bands probably keep them away as long as it's got a decent pulse and it throws them off. They come in so lazily that they're probably going to be deterred by most of their attacks. But these guys, no, I don't think that they're going to work for those. I do believe I've seen others say that these new shark bands and shark shield, that they'll work against most sharks, but not against this guy. So we're going to get into all those. I wanted to start back at the start of deterrence, and that was with the Navy, that they were trying to do for their people. So we're going to start there. We looked into the dye. We know the dye doesn't work. We know some sharks want to eat it. Basically to hide the sharks, camouflage the sharks from the sailors. So that one didn't work out. I will look into this bag to find out exactly what happened with that, if there was any incidents to why they weren't there. So what I want to do is go through the history of the deterrents and find out what happened and how they failed. And like H. David Baldrige said about the dye, and even about the electric current, it's like a parachute, a shark deterrent that only works sometimes. It's like a parachute that only works sometimes. When you need it to work. So that led me to thinking there wasn't much that could be done. I think back in the day they did the snake stripes on things, and now there's a kind of like the shirt, different shades of blue to kind of camo you from the guy. I don't think it will, but I haven't looked into those yet. So we're going to work our way from 68 and all the way to present on these shark deterrents, and see which one might work the best, and see if there's any proof of any of them having any effect on the big ones. So that's our story of those. Now we're going to get into why so angry shark. Back in 1899, Monterey Bay, California, there's whalers are out there, and I guess this is the first and last attempt to take the large sharks from Monterey Bay. There's a whaler boat that went in there, and what I'm assuming is that the main boat they harpooned the shark from the main boat. I don't know, maybe they did harpoon the shark from one of the smaller boats. That's a possibility, but it's a basking shark. They went ahead, they harpooned the shark. Now there's a boat on the starboard and on the other side, so the left and right side of the main boat, there's little smaller boats. And the shark came up to the one boat and surfaced, got its body partly out of the water, took its tail out of the water, and the first hit on that boat crushed in the side gunwale and killed the 2 men that were on that boat. And it also swamped it, and that boat sank. Then it went and hit another boat, and I believe this was the main boat that it hit, but it smacked the main boat with its tail, and then it turned on its side and just started thrashing like crazy. And then it dove, and it dragged the boat down with it. So the boat got damaged enough from it hitting with its tail that it started taking on water, and now the shark, when it dove, it took the boat down with it. It must not have been that big of a boat. And eventually, about a minute later, the wreckage popped to the surface, and one of the sailors was still alive. 4 others either were drowned or killed, like by the boat that got hit by the tail. They were crushed by the tail of the shark. The other 2 ended up either drowning or were also crushed by the shark. So that left one guy, then he drifted around the water for hours and he was picked up. So that's probably where the story comes from, is the survivor on this one. Said it was a 40-foot basking shark, and like I said, this was the first and last time it says that they tried to take the large sharks out of Monterey Bay. Why so angry shark? We know why so angry, but man, I've seen a lot of this about basking sharks, ramming boats back in the day. They would ram them quite a bit. But this is the first time I've heard of any, whalers trying to harpoon them. So they kind of got what they were asking for, going ahead and trying to harpoon a basking shark. And I'm still confused on why they would want it. I know that you'd get some oil out of its liver, but I would think you get more oil by far out of a whale. So maybe they just, went out and killed too many whales, and now they're after the sharks. But the sharks weren't going to go along with it. That's our story of the unknown boat and the unknown sailors that ended up passing away. Story from 1899, and that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll be back in a few more days. But remember, as always, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.